Hey everyone! So in the last few videos I've gotten a number of questions and comments about my desktop setup, and I actually haven't talked about this in a while, and since the last time I talked about it a number of things have changed. So I figure now would be a good chance to actually go through some of this stuff, give you some brief commentary about it. So probably the biggest change is that recently I've been focusing more on kind of monitoring my videos, and particularly, listening to the way my voice comes across, but also learning about what goes into monitoring and sort of music production and that sort of thing. So, to that, end, I bought a pair of these KRK Rocket monitors, these 4-inch monitors. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say KRK is not the most accurate monitor brand that there is out there, because they are compared to some of the other brands, they're considered to be maybe a little bit more bassy or anything like that. I mean, on the one hand, I actually wanted to have something that I could listen to as well casually on in music, as well as doing double duty as a monitor. uh, because I'm only really monitoring my vocals, it's not absolutely critical that I get a perfectly flat frequency response. But the other reason why I went with the KRKs was because they were relatively well priced. A pair of these was $300 in Australia. Again, much more expensive than they do in America. You can buy monitors in Best Buy, also I've read, which is pretty crazy. I had to go to sort of a dedicated audio store to get these. But what I like about these is that they are front ported, because you can see that I do not have that much clearance at the back, and I do not want to get a pair of reported speakers to exhaust into this area. Probably not going to be great for the sort of imaging or anything like that. Probably not critical, but I'm sort of picky about this sort of thing. And also, they are 4-inch monitors, so they're nice and compact. I don't have a great deal of desktop room. You can see that, I got this big area here, but normally this would be covered in textbooks and papers and stuff like that. Okay, so we've got the KRK Rockets, and you can see that they're not the most amazing things in the world. Or maybe you can't see them. You can actually see some of the glue on the speaker cones, which is not a good indication of wonderful quality design. But one day maybe I'll save up and get a pair of Genelecs or something like that. They're sitting on top of these isoacoustic stands that I've had for some time. If you remember from my earlier videos, I had my old Actimate speakers sitting on top of those. Those were number one, huge speakers, which weren't ideal, and number two, probably not good for monitoring. They're tilted up slightly so that my ears are aligned with the tweeters somewhat, not perfectly though. We've got this Nintendo Amiibo here, characters from Splatoon. My niece really loves these characters, and I might have done a bad thing, because I showed her how the Amiibo functionality worked on the gamepad. So you put this in, and then the characters appear on the screen and sort of talk to you. And now since then, she's been obsessed with them. I'm hoping that she'll just forget about them, because she always comes around and wants me to turn on the Wii and then watch a Callie and Marie concert. It's fun, but I figure there are more fun things to do than me controlling a gamepad walking around in a virtual concert. But yeah, so the KRKs. Back to the KRKs. This purchase actually set off a chain of changes that I had to make with the speakers to my setup, because they have a volume control at the back for each independent speaker, but you actually have to have a preamp to control the volume. So I started using, I bought this Matrix HBA3U some time ago as a headphone amplifier. It's been a relatively decent unit. No complaints until I got these speakers, and then I realized a number of shortcomings with this unit. So these go out to the back. These go into the KRKs. I control the volume with this knob. First thing I found out, number one, this Matrix M stage, it has an inbuilt USB DAC. It picks up noise from the computer through the DAC, which I didn't realize before because it didn't really come through the headphones until I turned it up really high. It came through as a noticeable buzz from the speakers, and I tried my ODAC as well in the same situation. Still get the same buzz. It's something from the power supply on the iMac. So I actually had to bypass the DAC on this Matrix, and I'm right now using this old HRT music streamer as the DAC here. Now, I bought this a very long time ago, before I even started really making YouTube videos, and I've always been suspicious of it because I felt like I paid too much for it when I did, back then when I was more naive and sort of more into sort of this audiophile stuff. Then I realized that the HRT unit here, the music streamer, it actually works really well in this setup because it's galvanically isolated. The USB input is electrically isolated from the audio output. So what that means is when I put this in the chain, it drops the noise from the iMac. So I've got a newfound respect for this unit. And I'm quite happy that I had this lying around and I hadn't sold it yet. So that's what's happening. So the other thing is that I found out that the Matrix, the RCA out is variable. So it changes with the volume. So I couldn't get output from this Matrix for the DAC for the Stax amp unless I wanted to control two volume knobs at the same time, because the Stax has an independent volume now. This is the SRS 353X that I mentioned in earlier videos. So what's happening now is that the Matrix is going out to the Stax, and then it's going out via RCA, and then there's another RCA out at the back, a parallel RCA out that's going into the input on the Matrix, and then from the Matrix it's going out to the KRKs. Now here's the second thing that I discovered was that even when I've lost that USB noise from the computer, I still get a buzzing ground loop noise from the electrical wiring in my house. I don't really understand why. I understand that the way it works is with a ground loop, because you have two paths to electrical ground, and in Australia most a lot of equipment is grounded. You have two paths to ground. You sort of get a current zinging across those two paths, and so you get a buzzing. So what I did was I went to another pro audio shop and talked to them about my situation, and they said I should get one of these. So this is a DTI from the company Art Accessories. So this is again an isolator. It's going from the Matrix RCA out, and then I got these balance cables out the back that go into the KRKs. This has actually eliminated the ground loop, which is really cool. And I bought this specific one because it means that, one day if I do switch to balance inputs, I don't have to buy a new sort of thing. This was about $90 or so, Australian dollars. And that's actually eliminated the ground loop. Now, these things apparently add a bit of low frequency distortion below 50 or 30 hertz, but that's okay because these 4-inch KRKs do not reproduce any frequencies, I believe, below 40 or 50 hertz. So, that's a blessing there in disguise. The other thing I'm slightly disappointed about with the Matrix is that I discovered if you put the USB input in and you have an analog, and you unplug the analog input, if you switch between the analog and digital, I should probably set it up and show you, but what happens is this is a switch that switches between the USB and the analog input. If you're on digital and you have audio input, like something's going through the DAC, and then you switch to analog, you can still faintly hear the USB input, and I would say that that's probably poor design. But maybe if you know a little bit more about electrical engineering, you could tell me why. But I feel like that this is probably going to go on the chopping block soon. I'm going to replace this with the Jotunheim. I'm not absolutely sure. Now, here's the stacks. I probably talked a lot about the stacks, but I'll just mention these again. I have to say, these for a $400, $500 headphone, they're built like crap. They are built horribly. Made in Japan, but they just feel like the plastic's just going to snap at any point. They do not feel nicely constructed. And it's very strange because the Sax amplifier that I got looks and feels beautiful. But this headphone does not. Can't work out what's going on there. But anyway, that's the Stax. Very happy with this headphone. It's sort of, as I've listened to it more, it's sort of almost like the ER4X that I have, but with less bass. So it's still got very punchy bass, but it's less of it. So it's a very, very, I wouldn't say absolutely neutral sound, because I would say it's a little upper mid forward. So it's sort of almost nasal in sound. There's something going on with the mids there. But I'm really happy, and I've just learned the Focal Elia and the Utopia will be delayed until possibly 2017 before I have a chance to listen to a demo unit. So I'm pretty happy I bought these, and I'll probably turn my attention to the new Sony headphone coming out soon, just to have a listen to that then. Then I've got my, sort of panel of headphones that I keep in rotation. Right now, I've got the Sony 100 ABN. Good portable headphone. I actually quite like using this as a desktop headphone. Pretty happy with that. The Audio-Technica R70X, I should probably take this out of rotation and replace it with something else for the now, because I actually haven't used this much since I got the Stax. It's not that these sound that similar. This is actually a lot warmer than the Stax, but it's just whenever I want an easygoing sound, comfortable fit, I actually tend to go with the Stax now. Maybe because I spent $1,000 on it, you gotta get your money's worth. This is the DT770. I always keep this around, even though it's not the most natural sounding of headphones. There's just something really fun about the way this headphone sounds. There's the ridiculous bass, and then this ridiculous treble response. I have entertained getting a DT1770, the new version. And I've seen a couple of nice prices for it. What really holds me back is that the 1770 weighs twice as much for some bizarre reason. It's not uncomfortable, but this is a easy to live with headphone. And then I got the Sennheiser Game 1 that I use for any sort of random streams that I do or something. You see that I've got an aftermarket windsock on it. Finally, I'll give you a quick update on the Gyrarium in case you're wondering. I've got this under that lamp, the Philips Hue that I talked about before. I can't find my phone. Otherwise, I'll show you this cool thing. Let's see. Let's bring it up. So the whole point with the Philips Hue, if you've never heard of them, is that they are color changing lamps. So you can actually change the color on them. So I've got it set up so that it simulates a day-night cycle. Obviously, this is not the day-night cycle. This is me playing around with it. But I can get a specific color temperature throughout the day, which is really cool. And, as I mentioned before, I sort of had to restart the whole thing, transplant it. So you see a whole bunch of the hair grasses actually died because I had to replant it and it didn't survive the transition. But you see a bunch of new growths in the back. That's actually growing quite quickly. Also, the HC in the foreground is growing quite quickly, sort of carpeted. So this time around when I replanted everything, I kind of gave it a little bit more room between everything, which is cool. And then last but not least, I suppose I should talk about the setup that I'm using for streaming right now. Sort of a what are those Russian dolls called? The dolls that infinitely regress inside each other. Anyway, you can see that we've got the live stream comments from my Patreon subscribers. Hey, Adam. Hey, Visionary. So, what was I going to say? Yes, mind blank. Okay, so the way this works is that this goes out by the Thunderbolt. And obviously this laptop doesn't sit here all the time, but I use my MacBook Air for this sort of streaming. Thunderbolt to a Blackmagic Ultra Studio mini recorder, and this thing gets so hot when it's on. If I could just get it to focus. I've got it in my pocket right now just to do this particular video. It gets so hot. It's burning a hole in my pocket. It actually makes me want to end this stream as quickly as possible. So that's really cool. It means that I can take a HDMI input from the camera directly and then stream it out directly on the internet. And then you kind of get laptop audio. Very cool stuff. So yeah, that's really what's changed with my desktop setup. I've got that new hard drive and rearranged some of the figures. There's Tomoko hiding there behind the thing. Quite happy with this setup. As I mentioned before, I'll probably end up getting the Jotunheim and trying to get as much balanced cabling as possible, because right now in this setup, what I like about it is that the DAC, I do not have to switch the DAC to listen to either the speakers or the headphone amp or the stacks, which is really cool. It's all coming out of the same DAC. And then it's all working with the variable volume controls. But it's about 6 meters of cabling all up, because I find it very hard to find 1 meter RCA cables. I should probably order some more, but it is about 6 meters of cabling. So I'll consider swapping the Matrix out. And if you're interested in buying one of these, despite my comments, then please chuck me an email, because sort of probably going to end up getting a Jotunheim to replace this. And that's it. So if you got any questions, comments, leave them. I will give you my replies. Thanks for watching. Cheers.